Nice counter, right, left from Bivol. Now he's on the front foot. Combination punching.
Calm, relaxed, smiling. Oh!
Just slipped him!
Welcome to the Blue Corner Combat Sports Podcast. Knockout insights, unfiltered and unleashed, where fists fly and stories hit hard.
Welcome back, fight fans. I'm your host, Joseph Azar, collegiate boxing All-American and national finalist. My partner, Nathan, is putting the final touches on our website and social media outreach program, so he will not be in this episode today. As you remember from our trailer episode, we will be releasing our interview with undefeated pro MMA fighter Cameron Sandoval. This was a very interesting interview. If you're a fighter yourself, he gives some great tips on managing nerves, how to manage your career, whether pro or amateur, and how to balance all aspects of life with your training, and also recommends some of his favorite gyms in the Northern Nevada area. I think Cameron has handled his fight career the right way so far. So if you're looking to make a career out of combat sports, whether it's MMA or boxing or something else, he's got some great tips for you. And if you're simply a fight fan, this interview has some really interesting inside takes on what his training partner Merab Dvalishvili did before he won the Bantamweight UFC title against Sugar Sean O'Malley, how he got that crazy gas tank, which is interesting because he said Merab doesn't train way more than everyone else. It's the mental techniques that allow him to keep himself collected and calm the entire fight. All the details coming up. And just for your information, we had to do the interview over phone, seeing as that Cameron has moved to Las Vegas to train at Syndicate MMA. So if the audio doesn't sound perfect, that would be why. Without further ado, here's our interview with undefeated pro and who I think is a future UFC star, Cameron Sandoval. I'm here with 3-0 undefeated professional MMA fighter Cameron Sandoval, born in Reno, Nevada, now fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada. What are you doing right now, Cameron?
I just got my hair cut, actually.
Nice.
Sitting in the car talking to you.
Okay. We appreciate your time hopping on this podcast. We just want to pick your brain a little bit. So let's start from the beginning. You're from Reno. What part of Reno are you from?
South Reno. Yeah. I grew up in the Galena, Demonte Ranch area, and then eventually went to high school at Demonte Ranch. Wrestled and played football there.
So what got you into wrestling and football?
Football I started when I was real young, like maybe 6, like real young, bobblehead style. And then eventually through like some friends we made through football, we eventually me and one of my old football teammates, we decided to start wrestling season together when I was about 8 or 9 years old because his dad was a wrestler. So we started wrestling when I was about 8 or 9. When I first started, I hated it. It was I was crying probably every practice for the first few weeks, but it eventually grew on me, and then eventually I started to love wrestling just as much as football. And then through high school, I was just playing, football and wrestling.
So while you were wrestling in high school, what weight did you wrestle at?
I wrestled, I think I started at 126 and then finished at about maybe 38. I think I finished at that, 138.
So similar to the weight you fight at in MMA, right?
Yeah. I thought I was going to grow after high school, and turns out I'm sticking right here.
And you fight at 135 in the professional ranks, correct?
Yeah, my last 2 fights were at 135, but I actually, for my pro debut about a year ago, I actually did make 125.
Wow, how was that weight cut?
It was brutal. It was brutal. I definitely learned a lot about myself and about the weight cutting process. I definitely could do it again if the time was ever needed where I needed to cut that weight. But after speaking with my coaches and people I'm close to, I think we're most likely gonna hang out at 135.
Okay, yeah, not too bad of a cut, but also similar size to the rest of the guys you're fighting.
Yeah, I would say I'm not a big 35er for sure. There's some giant 135ers out there with the weight cuts, but I'm somewhere right in the middle, which means it's good. I can be happy through my camp. I don't got to worry about a diet too much. I'm lifting weights about once or twice a week, trying to stay strong. So there's some benefits to it as well.
Is there any type of specific weight training you do for combat sports?
I stick with like the main lifts. I always try to make sure I get the main lifts in, the squats, the deadlifts, the bench, push-ups, and pull-ups. I always stick with that. But I also always try to like add in some type of explosive movement. So every workout I do when it comes to lifting weights will be comprised of probably 2 or 3 main lifts and then probably 2 or 3 explosive type workouts, like one-legged squats, some type of clean, some type of box jump, something like that.
A little bit of plyometrics thrown in there.
Yep, a little bit of that as well.
And so growing up wrestling and playing football, how did you begin transitioning into MMA here in Reno?
So I really wanted to go play football in college. By the time I was in my senior year of high school, I really fell in love with football. So I was hoping to go play football in college, but I didn't have the grades, and I was also 140 pounds. So the football thing didn't work out, and I was kind of in that weird middle ground where I wasn't going to school. I was doing things I probably shouldn't have. And then I actually had a girlfriend at the time, and she was a fan of Conor McGregor. And I was like, who is this Conor McGregor guy you're always talking about? So then I went down the rabbit hole of Conor McGregor, and I kind of fell in love with it. And I've been an athlete my entire life. I've been a competitor my entire life. And you can only be an athlete for, a certain amount of years. So I was like, I'm going to, give it a go at one more athletic endeavor and give it all I got. And it turned out to be fighting. And now I'm about 6 years in, a little over 6 years in, and it's changed my life. I've been all over the country, all over the world because of fighting. So I made the decision, because of Conor McGregor and because of a girl, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life.
Do you think only with 6 years of experience in MMA, a lot of these other guys have been training in martial arts their whole life? Do you think that plays a factor or not?
Yeah, 100%. But there's always you can look at it 2 different ways. I've been wrestling my entire life as well. So like, I've been in the martial arts game for a long time. I've stepped across the line from, another man and competed with them in a physical combative sport. And I've been doing that since I was a little kid. So I always lean back on my wrestling experience. Like, who knows how many wrestling matches I have, thousands and thousands of wrestling matches.
Yeah.
So I always lean back on that. And then you also got to think, too, a lot of these people that do these sports from the time that they're little kids and then try and go pro with it, they're also not as enthusiastic because they've been doing it forever. They're not as willing to learn. They're not as willing to step out of their comfort zone. But when I went in to fighting,
you're fresh
as a new guy, as a green guy. Exactly, I was fresh mentally. I was fresh physically. I was a completely clean slate. You know what I mean? And most importantly, like the biggest one, I think, is the enthusiasm to learn, the enthusiasm to keep showing up day in and day out, and
open to criticism, open to growing.
All of that, exactly. So I think, of course, I would have loved to maybe, start jiu-jitsu and striking a little bit earlier, but the way it worked out for me, I think it was honestly perfect timing. I was done with football, I was done with wrestling, and I was like in the perfect position to start this new endeavor.
I agree. And combat sports, a lot of great coaches always say boxing, MMA, fighting is 90% mental. And if you can be fully enveloped in the sport, mentally focused, it pays a lot of dividends.
Yeah, 100%, and especially the more I learn. Like, I've had plenty of amateur fights and now pro fights. I fought in Thailand and I fought all over the country, like I said. So like, I just take it as like reps, like mental reps. Like I've gotten all these mental reps on how I should feel when I walk in the cage, on how I shouldn't feel walking into the cage. And the more experience I get, the more people I meet in this journey, like the more teammates I get close to, the more I realize that it really is like so much mental. When you go into my gym, like I'm not gonna get one partner that isn't a stud. You know what I mean? Like, when you get to the pro level, everybody's a stud. What separates the champions is 100% that mental aspect. And
you're referencing the Syndicate MMA gym in Las Vegas, correct?
Yep. Syndicate MMA. This is my new home gym, and I'm happy as ever. I was one of Merab's main training partners for Sugar Sean, so I got really good help from Merab, getting taken down thousands of times by him. And just I got just so many studs around me.
For a young kid growing up in Reno, What is your advice for them? What are some good gyms to go to here in Reno?
There's a lot of good gyms. You know what I mean. We got to give a shout out to the one and only Dr. Santos at Elite Boxing. He's a great boxing coach. One of the best coaches in general that I've ever came across, without a doubt. So Jared over at Elite is great. You got one of my old gyms, Combat Sport and Fitness, newly Alchemy MMA. They're a great gym. There's Tonkin Fight Club. And then one I would for sure recommend for jiu-jitsu is the Anderson brothers. They're both black belts, both studs, and they just opened up a new jiu-jitsu gym in Reno and called All Ground. So I would say for jiu-jitsu, go to All Ground. If you want to do just boxing, talk to Dr. Santos because he's one of the best. And then if you want to do MMA, I would say go to Alchemy with one of my old coaches, Coach Zeus, just to where you get the jiu-jitsu, the striking, the cage work, and all that good stuff.
How would you compare the training scene in terms of opportunities a young fighter can get? How would you compare Reno to other cities like Las Vegas, Southern California, Thailand?
For sure. Well, all those ones you just listed, Southern California, Vegas, Thailand, those are fight hubs. Those are fight capitals in the world. So if I was speaking to a kid that was newly coming up, an amateur fighter, and they lived in Reno and they're like, I gotta go to Vegas. I gotta go to Vegas. I would tell them, you don't have to do that.
Really?
By the time, 100%, I would say, stick with where you're at, because what's going to happen is you're an amateur kid. You're going to go down to Vegas and you're going to get beat up by pros every damn day. You know what I mean? And then the next thing you know, you hate the sport.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So I would recommend for any young martial artist is to truly, truly, truly embrace the process. And I know it's cliche, but truly embrace the process. Jiu-jitsu is a good example. The white belt, blue belt, purple belt scheme. Like the white belt stage is going to be the hardest stage of it. When you just start, it's going to be the hardest. So you should be totally happy getting beat up by blue belts as a white belt and not be like, oh, I should be getting beat up by black belts. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you're totally jumping a whole bunch of steps.
It's part of the growing process.
100%, bro, 100%. So, yeah, I would recommend if anyone's in a small town, if you are an amateur fighter and you clear out the whole amateur circuit and the whole regional circuit, and now you're a pro, and you know now you can start thinking about training with other pros, training with world-class athletes, and I'm saying that obviously a little biased. That's about how my process went. I was at a small gym for 5 years of my career, whether it was in Reno or North Carolina. It was a small gym. It was just, a couple people on the mats, one coach. And I made the move to Vegas because of where I was at in my position when it comes to skill, when it comes to career and all that. It was the right time for me to come down to Vegas. But if I was 1-0 as an amateur and I was like, let's go to Vegas. Like, I'm ready for the big dogs. I'm like, who knows, bro? I probably would have been broken in half or quit 3 years ago. Does that make sense?
100%. It's all about longevity in combat sports.
For sure. 100%. And it's all about foundation. Like, with boxing, if you can't move your feet properly, I don't care how hard you punch. You know what I mean? So, like, you might come down to Vegas and be able to throw a big, heavy punch, but can you do all the small details that makes what a pro is,
Exactly. Tell me a little bit how your amateur career went. How was it starting in the amateurs here in Reno?
So about my amateur career, so I started training in Reno. I started training just Muay Thai and just boxing, or just Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu rather. And because I had the wrestling already, so I started training both those individually at different gyms. And I got close to a couple coaches. And then eventually I decided to take my first fight. And then after my first fight, I rattled off like 5 fights within like 3 or 4, maybe 5 months. Like I was fighting super often, which is how you should do it as an amateur.
Yeah.
And then I was 5-0 as an amateur, and I fought for my first title, which was the King of the Cage title. And I fought Peyton Talbot, who was another Reno kid, and I lost to him. He's now in the UFC, an undefeated pro, an absolute stud. But I lost to him.
Do you think if you had won that fight, you would have had the chances, the opportunities that he was given after that fight?
No, not at all. No, we're on totally different paths. He still trains in Reno. I'll give him a shout out. He still trains every once in a while at Reno Academy of Combat, which is another solid gym in town. But no, our stories are completely different, you know. Yeah, you know, he already made it to the big show, but you know, like I've done a lot of things in that time. I've gone over to Thailand, I've gone across the country, I've seen the whole East Coast, and I've done a lot. So if I was given his opportunities, that means that my opportunities that I have had that have been amazing would have probably not happened. So
every fighter's got a different path, and
100%.
It all leads to the same place. It doesn't matter how you get there. And
100%.
Let's talk a little bit about your professional career. When did you know that you were ready to turn professional?
I knew I was ready to turn professional. Honestly, that's a tough one to pinpoint. Was it
a word from a coach? Was it you were beating all the local amateurs in your area and you knew it was time for a step up?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a combination of all those things. It was getting tough for me to find fights as an amateur. Like I said, I did everything right in my amateur career in coming up in the game. So when I turned pro, I was about 5.5 years in, and to me, that's like plenty of time. The way I looked at it was like going to college, you know what I mean? Yeah. I got my degree. I did my 4 or 5 years of schooling and of testing and of battling. And now, just like you would in college, you would go and get a career and start making money. And that's kind of the way I approached it. I was like, I put in my time, I did the test. Now it's time to make something happen out of this.
And you have 3 finishes by submission up to this point in your pro career. How would you describe your fighting style to those who haven't seen you fight yet?
Yeah, 100%. Like I would just say I'm a complete mixed martial artist. You know, I don't train. You know, when I was in Reno, I mean, me and you were training, which was really good times.
Yeah.
I was only training boxing. You know what I mean? And that's not. I can't do that as a mixed martial artist fighter. So like, even when I came from Reno and down to Vegas, there was some habits that I built from just boxing that I had to break.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm a complete mixed martial artist. I grew up wrestling. I was one of the best in the state in wrestling, and then now I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And I did the whole Thailand thing. I went to Thailand and fought and trained like a Thai fighter and did that whole thing. So yeah, I would say I'm a complete fighter.
And that's a really good trait to have in MMA. A lot of guys get to the top and maybe they're lacking in wrestling or striking. But I can attest to this, that sparring with you, Cameron, that you are one of the best MMA fighters in the boxing ring that I've ever came across. So I can attest to that, you are a very well-rounded fighter.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. That means a lot. You're a great boxer as well, and it's always good when you go to a boxing gym and they say you got good boxing, or you go to a jiu-jitsu gym and they say you got good jiu-jitsu. Like, it's nice hearing it from the specialists like yourself. So I appreciate that. Shout out to Dr. Santos.
Yes, sir. Shout out to Elite Boxing here in Reno, Nevada.
Yep.
Who are some pro MMA fighters that you look up to? Some greats in the sport.
Jose Aldo, one of the fighter that I try to emulate my style most like. Just really fast hands, really hard low kicks, good takedowns, good takedown defense. But honestly, what's beautiful about the sport that I'm in right now is like all the people that I look up to and inspire me, I train with every day. So like I said, I was helping Merab get ready for the Sugar Sean fight. And then, I trained, me and Merab sparred 3 5-minute rounds the day that he fought Sugar Sean in the Sphere.
Wow.
So it's crazy. So like, that's Merab's unique style. He likes to spar on fight day, which is absolutely crazy, but that's what makes Merab who he is. So yeah, I spar with Merab in the morning, and then at night, I'm watching him on the Sphere win a world title. Like, how could you not be inspired by that? And he's just such a humble guy. Like, so that was a big inspiration for me. And then I got tons of training partners that aren't even in the UFC that are absolute savages and absolute studs. Like this weekend, I got my boy Chris Ocon, who is a phenomenal fighter. You think I got good boxing for an MMA fighter? This boy is so sharp. So yeah, Chris Ocon, Stav, Corin, like I'm really lucky here at Syndicate because the level of training is super high, but I'm also inspired every day, and there's a good sense of camaraderie in the gym. So yeah, brother, I'm honestly I'm inspired every day by my teammates.
And Merab is known for his insane gas tank, and to be able to spar 3 5-minute rounds the day of the fight and then go display a performance like he did against Sean O'Malley, didn't get tired, still bouncing, ready in the final round of that fight. How does one develop a gas tank like that?
Well, to add to that, I sparred with him in the morning. I heard he sparred 3 more rounds with Aljamain Sterling in the locker room.
Wow.
So that, just to add to that. But like I said, Merab, what they call his gas tank is simply, it's too much to only call it a good gas tank. Like, you could train, like, everybody trains hard. Everybody's doing the Aerodyne bike. Everybody does all this. People still gas out. What separates Merab and what separates a lot of these people who don't get tired is their mentality. What tires people out in fights isn't just the physical punching and kicking, because we do that every day in training for hours, right? What causes people to get tired is the stress of getting hit and getting hurt. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Merab is fearless. He doesn't have that fear, like, and if he does have the fear, he's able to block it and disregard it, so that he's in the middle of the biggest fight of the year at the Sphere, and he's able to crack jokes. He's able to kiss Sean on his back. Like, his cardio is more so about the strength of his mind than anything else.
Wow, that's a great take, because that brings us back to what we were saying earlier, is that fighting is 90% mental, and
100%.
Wow, yeah, that story really shows that. So what's for you? What's the next step? What's the 5-year plan looking like?
Yeah, 100%. Well, actually today, I was getting my emergency haircut because I'm actually going to Brazil today. I'm getting on a flight a little bit later. I'm going to go to Brazil and with my girlfriend. She's from Brazil, so I'll go meet her family and we'll go train at her gym and all that good stuff. So once I get back from Brazil, it's all about taking fights and winning fights. I got a great team now, a world-class team. I'm going to get world-class management here soon. And then it's just off to the races. Train hard, win fights, and finish people. And then, the Contender Series is the route to get to the UFC now.
Yeah.
For most people, So, if I could bust out a couple fights and get some big highlight reel finishes, then who knows? I could be on the show next year. And if not, I have no problem fighting it out for another year and hopping on the show the following year. But that's the plan for now. Keep getting fights, keep winning fights, finishing people, finishing them fast, and then get to that show. And then when I get to that show, it's gonna, again, like I said, when I go into the cage, every time I think back on all the wrestling matches, all the beat downs, all the times I got beat up, all the times I went home upset from sparring. Like, when it comes time for me to step on that big show, I'll have all that to lean back on, and I'll 100% be ready for that.
Yep, suffer in the gym, so the fight's easy.
You know what it is, baby.
And one last question: do you have any pre-fight rituals that you go through to get yourself ready?
Pre-fight? Nothing superstitious. Like, I don't wear a certain pair of socks or a certain pair of underwear. The most important thing to me is just to have a good energy on fight day. Like, I could have the most fabulous fight camp. I could be in the best shape ever. But if I wake up on fight day and I'm scared and I'm timid and I have bad conversations in my head with myself, then all that training's for nothing. So when it comes to fight day, the most important thing for me is just to be in a good state of mind. Be happy that the hard work is over. Be happy that you get to show off your skills and your art form, and use it as more of a celebration than something that I'm biting my nails to get to. Like, I should be excited to fight and happy to fight, not scared and timid to fight, because this is what I moved across the country twice. I've been across the world, all for this game of fighting. So most importantly for me when I go into fight is just make sure I have a good state of mind and don't get in my own head.
this is a personal question for me because in most of my fights that I've won, I went in feeling that I was the best, mentally ready. And the fights that I've lost, I like to think that I beat myself because I psyched myself out before the fight, wasn't mentally ready, didn't want to be there. How do you fend off those bad thoughts? How do you keep yourself from going down into that deep, dark hole before your fight?
Yeah, for sure. Every fighter has that. Me and you have had this conversation before.
Yeah.
At the gym, but like every fighter goes through that. If you don't go through those emotions, then you're probably a certified sociopath.
Yeah.
So like everybody goes through those emotions. Again, I'll lean back on my experience. Like I've stepped across the line for thousands of people in wrestling. Like I went to a foreign land and fought on 24 hours notice, a couple weight classes up in Thailand. Like all my experiences have definitely helped make it stronger, like how to fight those feelings. But like a simple answer, like to kind of sum it all up, is like you just gotta kind of pretend that voice that's saying negative things about you, pretend like it's a character in real life, pretend like it's somebody you could talk to. So if you have a bad thought, like, fuck, I hope I don't get knocked out today, immediately be like, why would you get knocked out? You haven't been knocked out in the gym all camp and you're sparring with studs. Why would you get knocked out now? So like you literally have to have, when a negative thought comes in, you have to almost like talk back to it and like completely counter it. And this is all in your own head. You know how it is.
It's like the devil on your shoulder and the angel on your other shoulder. You gotta.
As cliche as it is, that's exactly what it is.
Wow. For
sure.
And one last final question. Thank you for your time today, Cameron. How do you see a potential matchup between Merab and Umar playing out? And
ooh, that's a good fight, baby. That's a great fight. Umar's a stud. Umar is a stud. He's like I said, it's a complete fighter. He's good striking, he's good wrestling, and Merab takes everybody down. So people are saying that, you know, Umar will counter the wrestling and then win on the feet. I grew up wrestling my whole damn life.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to keep Merab off you. It is like, I'm so glad I did not have to fight Merab in a real fight, because he is absolutely impossible to keep off. So I think Umar will probably defend the first 2, 3, 4 shots like most people do. But then after that, Merab is going to keep coming and then eventually take over the fight. That's what I think. I think the only way I love Merab, and the only way you beat him is by putting him to sleep.
Well, thank you, Cameron, for your time. We appreciate you coming on our podcast. Very much appreciated, man. You gave us some great takes. Thank you.
Yeah, brother. No, thank you for having me. It was good hearing from you. Keep training hard. Tell everybody back in Reno I said what's up. And, I appreciate you, bro.
All right, we're back. Wow. Truly, I meant it when I said Cameron has something of value for anyone to hear. This is a trend our podcast is going to follow. Whether you're a fighter yourself or just a fight fan in love with combat sports, we've got something for you. Tune into our next episode where we break down the current scene in the highest level of professional boxing and MMA with another surprise guest for you all to listen to. This concludes episode 2 of The Blue Corner, where we provide the latest info in combat sports and compile it all into one podcast, making it easy for you to be the most informed fight fan even when you're on the go. Thanks for listening.